The Library of Alexandria's destruction, the greatest mystery in history. What if I told you that humanity lost the cure for cancer, the secrets of ancient technology, and perhaps even the knowledge of civilizations we've never heard of, all in a single catastrophic event? The destruction of the Library of Alexandria wasn't just the burning of books, it was the erasure of human memory itself. This is the story of the greatest library ever built, and the mystery that has haunted historians for 2,000 years. Because here's the thing, we don't actually know how it was destroyed, and the truth might be far more disturbing than you think. Picture this: Alexandria, Egypt, around 300 BC. Alexander the Great has just died, and his general Ptolemy has claimed Egypt as his prize. But Ptolemy doesn't just want to rule Egypt, he wants to create something the world has never seen. A monument not to war, but to knowledge itself. The Library of Alexandria was his answer. But calling it just a library is like calling the Colosseum just a stadium. This was the ancient world's intellectual superpower. Imagine every book, every scroll, every piece of written knowledge from across the known world, all gathered in one magnificent building. Greek philosophy, Egyptian astronomy, Babylonian mathematics, Persian medicine, Jewish texts, Indian sciences, everything. The Ptolemies were obsessed. They didn't just collect books, they hunted them. Ships that docked in Alexandria's harbor were searched. If they found scrolls on board, the scrolls were confiscated, copied, and the copies were returned to the owners. The originals stayed in the library. They called these the books of the ships. Ptolemy III took it even further. He borrowed the original manuscripts of the great Greek tragedies from Athens, promising a massive deposit as insurance. Athens sent him the priceless originals of Sophocles, Euripides, and Aeschylus. Ptolemy kept the originals, sent back the copies, and told Athens to keep the deposit. That's how badly they wanted authentic texts. At its peak, the library held somewhere between 400,000 and 1 million scrolls. To put that in perspective, that's essentially the entire written knowledge of the ancient Mediterranean world. Scholars came from everywhere to study there. Euclid wrote his Elements of Geometry there. Eratosthenes calculated the circumference of the Earth there, and he was only off by about 50 miles. Archimedes studied there. Hipparchus mapped the stars there. This wasn't just a storage facility, it was the world's first research institute, the first university, the place where human knowledge was systematically collected, organized, and expanded. The head librarian wasn't just a bookkeeper, he was one of the most powerful intellectual figures in the world. So what happened to it? Here's where the mystery begins, and this is why historians have been arguing about it for centuries. The common story you probably heard is that Julius Caesar burned it down in 48 BC during his little romantic adventure with Cleopatra. Caesar was trapped in Alexandria with his forces outnumbered. He set fire to Egyptian ships in the harbor. The fire spread, the library burned. Except that's not quite right. Yes, Caesar's fire definitely destroyed some scrolls. Ancient sources confirm this, but they describe it as a warehouse of books near the harbor that burned, not the main library building. Thousands of scrolls were lost, maybe even 40,000. But the library itself, it kept functioning. Scholars kept working there. Books kept being copied. The library survived Caesar. If you're enjoying uncovering these historical mysteries, make sure you subscribe to History Incomplete. We dive deep into the stories that textbooks got wrong, and trust me, this one gets even stranger. So if Caesar didn't destroy the library, who did? Some blame the Christian Roman Emperor Theodosius in 391 AD. By this time, Christianity was the official religion of the Roman Empire, and pagan temples were being destroyed across the empire. There was definitely religious violence in Alexandria. The Serapeum, a temple complex that housed part of the library's collection, was destroyed by a Christian mob led by the patriarch Theophilus. But here's the problem with that theory. By 391 AD, the library was already a shadow of what it once was. It had been declining for centuries. Civil wars, budget cuts, brain drain as scholars left for other cities. The Roman Emperor Aurelian had fought a war in Alexandria in 272 AD that destroyed much of the royal district where the library stood. By the time Christians were smashing pagan temples, there might not have been much library left to destroy. Then there's the most controversial theory, that the library was destroyed by Muslim conquerors in 641 AD. The story goes that Caliph Umar ordered the scrolls burned, saying if they agreed with the Quran, they were unnecessary, and if they disagreed, they were heretical. Either way, they should burn. The scrolls supposedly heated Alexandria's bathhouses for 6 months. It's a dramatic story. It's also almost certainly false. This account doesn't appear in any source until 500 years after the supposed event. No contemporary Muslim or Christian sources mention it. Most historians consider it propaganda invented during the Crusades. So what really happened? Here's the disturbing truth. The Library of Alexandria probably wasn't destroyed in a single dramatic event at all. It died slowly, by 1,000 cuts. Think about it. Libraries don't just exist. They require massive funding, political support, and a culture that values knowledge. The Ptolemies provided all of that, but the Ptolemaic dynasty ended when Rome conquered Egypt. The Romans didn't care about Alexandria's intellectual glory. They cared about Egypt's grain feeding Rome. Budgets were cut. Maintenance was deferred. Scrolls deteriorated. Scholars left for better opportunities. Each civil war, each riot, each fire in the city probably destroyed parts of the collection. But there was no single catastrophe, no one villain we can point to and say, they did it. The library faded away across centuries. By the time of the Arab conquest in the 600s, it was probably already gone. Not destroyed, just abandoned, neglected, and forgotten. But here's what really keeps historians up at night. What did we lose? We have fragments, references in other texts to books that once existed in Alexandria, but are now gone. We know their titles, sometimes even plot summaries, but the actual texts are lost forever. We lost Aristotle's dialogues. We have his lecture notes, which were never meant for publication, but his polished works for general readers? Gone. We lost most of the plays of ancient Greece. Of the roughly 1,000 plays written by the great Athenian playwrights, only 33 survive. We lost detailed histories of Alexander the Great's campaigns written by people who were actually there. We lost scientific treatises, medical texts, mathematical proofs. There's a text called the Mechanica that described advanced engineering, including possibly steam-powered devices. We have references to it. The actual text? Lost. Books on ancient agriculture, on metallurgy, on shipbuilding, poems, philosophies, entire ways of thinking about the world. Gone. Some scholars believe we lost records of civilizations that we don't even know existed. Think about that. There might have been advanced societies whose entire existence was documented only in Alexandria. And when those scrolls disappeared, so did any evidence they ever existed. This is why the destruction of the Library of Alexandria, however it happened, is considered one of the greatest intellectual catastrophes in human history. It's not just about the books. It's about the conversations we can't have, the ideas we can't build on, the knowledge we have to rediscover from scratch. And here's the final twist. We're still losing libraries today. In 2003, the National Library of Iraq in Baghdad was burned and looted during the invasion. Tens of thousands of manuscripts, some dating back to the Ottoman era, were destroyed. In Mali, in 2013, Islamic extremists burned thousands of ancient manuscripts in Timbuktu. Syria's civil war has destroyed countless archaeological sites and libraries. The lesson of Alexandria isn't just about the past. It's about how fragile human knowledge really is, and how easily it can be lost. Every book that burns, every database that crashes without backup, every oral tradition that dies with the last speaker, we lose a piece of ourselves. So maybe the real question isn't who destroyed the Library of Alexandria. Maybe it's this: What are we doing to make sure it never happens again? If this deep dive into history's greatest mysteries fascinated you, you need to subscribe to History Incomplete. We're not here to give you the sanitized textbook version. We're here to show you the messy, complicated, often disturbing truth about the past. Hit that subscribe button because there are so many more stories like this that you haven't heard. The Library of Alexandria is gone, but the questions it raises about knowledge, preservation, and what we owe to future generations, those are more relevant now than ever. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video where we uncover another piece of history that's more complicated than you think.